The tragic murder case that today took another twist, this time toward justice for a little girl named Riley Fox. She was 3 years old when she was raped and murdered.
Officials say someone has been arrested in connection to the 1997 rape and murder of Amber Gale Creed.
After Breonna Dennison's body was found that same morning, Bila quit his job, took his last paycheck, and moved to Washington State.
Kevin Fox was accused of killing his 3-year-old daughter, Riley.
In the realm of true crime, the United States and UK has seen some of the most perplexing and haunting cases in history. From unsolved mysteries that continue to baffle investigators to tragic stories of justice delayed and sometimes justice served. In this script, we explore 10 of the most gripping murder cases that have deeply affected the nation. Welcome back to Evil Criminals. Our heartfelt condolences go out to the victims, parents, friends, and family. We sincerely hope such tragic events never occur again. Join us as we uncover the details behind these heartbreaking stories, delving into the lives cut short and the legacies they left behind. These cases remind us of the darkness in our world and the ongoing pursuit of answers and justice. Number 10. Murder of Vera Page. Vera Isabel Minnie Page was born on 13 April 1921 in Hammersmith, London. Her father, Charles, worked as a painter for Great Western Railways, and her mother, Isabel, was a housewife. The family lived in a 3-story house on Blenheim Crescent in Notting Hill. On 14 December 1931, Vera, aged 10, left home around 4:30 p.m. to visit her aunt nearby and retrieve her swimming certificates. She was last seen at a chemist's near Blenheim Crescent and Portobello Road around 5:06 p.m., planning to buy Christmas presents for her parents. After this, she vanished. Her disappearance was reported to police that night, and despite extensive searches and media coverage, Vera was never found. On 16 December, a milkman discovered Vera's body in the front garden of 89 Addison Road, Kensington, approximately a mile from her home in Notting Hill. Her body was found in a patch of shrubbery, where the perpetrator had made a rudimentary attempt to cover her with earth and leaves. Investigators speculated that she had likely been murdered close to the location where her body was found, indicating the perpetrator either lived nearby or knew the area well. During the discovery of her body, a worn section of ammonia-stained finger bandage was found lodged against the inner elbow of her right arm. Her body showed signs of advanced decomposition, despite only approximately 40 hours having passed since she was last seen alive. This suggested her body had been stored in a warm environment. Vera's body was examined by pathologist Sir Bernard Spilsbury, who determined she had been raped and manually strangled shortly after she was last seen alive. Her body had superficial bruising and a ligature mark around her neck, though inflicted post-mortem. Spilsbury estimated she had been deceased for more than 24 hours before her body was discovered. Traces of soot and coal dust were found on Vera's face, and spattered candle wax was found on her clothing. The candle wax was determined to be different from any candles in Vera's home, suggesting her body had been hidden in a coal shed or cellar without electric light prior to being discarded at Addison Road. Vera's murder sparked public outrage, prompting an extensive police operation. Over 1,000 people were questioned, and thousands of witness statements were collected. Investigators believed Vera was likely abducted and killed by someone she knew and trusted, possibly in a warm room where she was raped and murdered. Traces of coal dust on her clothes suggested her body had been stored in a coal cellar. Percy Orlando Rush, a 41-year-old flannel washer, became the prime suspect. He lived near Blenheim Crescent and knew Vera. Rush had injured his left little finger at work a week before Vera's murder and regularly used ammonia. His home contained a red tablecloth matching one used to cover Vera's body, and candle wax consistent with that found on her clothing. Rush was found with a bandage matching one found at the crime scene. During questioning, Rush admitted knowing Vera but denied seeing her recently. He claimed his wife was absent on the evening of Vera's disappearance, and he had been shopping in Kensington. Rush was not charged due to insufficient evidence, and was acquitted. No one else was charged with Vera's murder. Percy Rush died of natural causes in Ealing in 1961. The murder of Vera Page remains unsolved. Number 9. Murder of Marion Crofts. Marion Crofts was the youngest of 3 daughters born to Trevor and Anne Crofts. On June 6, 1981, she rode her bicycle from her home in Fleet, Hampshire, to a clarinet lesson at the Wavell School in Farnborough. Normally driven by her father, who was playing cricket that day, Marion took a route along Laffins Road in Aldershot near the Basingstoke Canal. Between 9:30 and 10 a.m. she was brutally attacked, beaten unconscious, raped, and murdered. Her body, concealed in the underbrush, was discovered later that day by a police dog handler. Her clarinet case was found in the nearby canal. Tony Jasinski, a lance corporal in the Army Catering Corps stationed in Aldershot, was among hundreds questioned about the murder. DNA samples from Marion's body and clothing were preserved with the hope that technological advancements would eventually lead to the killer. In 1999, new low copy number LCN DNA testing linked the DNA to Jasinski, who was working as a security guard in Leicester at the time. He was arrested in April 2001 for assaulting his wife, and a routine DNA sample confirmed the match. Jasinski was charged with the 1981 rape and murder of Marion Crofts. During his trial, DNA evidence presented a 1 in a billion match to him. After a 4-week trial, the jury deliberated for 3 hours before finding him guilty. He received a life sentence for the murder and an additional 10 years for the rape, to be served concurrently. The judge denounced Jasinski for the cruel and callous murder, acknowledging the 21 years of suffering endured by Marion's family. In 2014, Jasinski appealed his life sentence, claiming the DNA evidence was flawed. However, the Court of Appeal dismissed his appeal, upholding the original verdict as entirely safe. In April 2022, the parole board announced that they would consider his case for release. Number 8. The Babes in the Wood Murders. The Babes in the Wood Murders refers to the tragic case of 2 9-year-old girls, Nicola Fellows and Karen Hadaway, who were murdered on 9 October 1986 in Wild Park, Molsacombe, Brighton, Sussex, England, by Russell Bishop, a 20-year-old local roofer. The case spanned several decades and involved significant developments in forensic science. Nicola Fellows and Karen Hadaway, best friends from the Molsacombe estate in Brighton, went out to play after returning home from school around 3:30 p.m. on 9 October 1986. The last sighting of them was around 5 p.m. when they were seen playing near a roller boot. They were later seen near a police box on Lewis Road around 6:30 p.m. that same day. When the girls did not return home by their bedtime, a search party of around 200 people, including police and neighbors, was organized. The bodies of the girls were tragically found hidden in a makeshift den in Wild Park the next afternoon by searchers. Both had been sexually assaulted and strangled. Russell Bishop, who had been involved in the search for the girls, fell under suspicion due to inconsistencies in his story and behavior. He was arrested on suspicion of murder on 31 October 1986. However, he was acquitted of both rape and murder charges at his trial in December 1987 at Lewis Crown Court, after just 2 hours of jury deliberation. The acquittal was due to several blunders in the prosecution's case, including forensic errors and mishandling of evidence. Double jeopardy rules initially prevented Bishop from facing a new trial, but new legislation in 2005 allowed for a retrial if substantial new evidence emerged. In 2006, new forensic evidence, including DNA found on a discarded sweatshirt and tapings from the girls' arms, linked Bishop to the crime scene. Despite this, it wasn't until 2018 that Bishop was retried for the murders. In December 2017, the Court of Appeal ordered the quashing of Bishop's 1987 acquittals and called for a second trial. Bishop was charged with the murders and pleaded not guilty. In December 2018, after a 9-week trial, Bishop was found guilty by a jury of 7 men and 5 women. He was sentenced to 2 life sentences with a minimum of 36 years in prison. In April 2024, Sussex police formally apologized for their failings in the investigation and for the wrongful arrest of Barry Fellows, Nicola's father, in a connected investigation in 2009. The case remains one of the largest and longest-running inquiries ever conducted by Sussex police, highlighting the impact of forensic advancements on bringing justice to victims of violent crimes. Number 7. Natalie Hemming murder case. In 2016, tragedy struck Milton Keynes when 31-year-old Natalie Hemming was viciously attacked and killed in her own home by her jealous partner Paul Hemming. Paul's violent act was triggered by his discovery that Natalie intended to leave him for a colleague. After committing the crime, he callously abandoned her body in nearby woodland, then returned home to Natalie's 3 sleeping children. Natalie's disappearance was first noticed by her mother, Margaret Hammond, who reported her missing to the police after failing to reach her for several days. Paul Hemming's evasive behavior during police questioning, coupled with suspicious CCTV footage and the discovery of blood spots in their home, quickly escalated the case from a missing person investigation to a murder inquiry. Detective Chief Inspector Simon Steele led the investigation, uncovering disturbing details about Paul's controlling behavior and explosive jealousy. Despite Natalie's efforts to leave him and start a new relationship, Paul's violent tendencies culminated in a tragic end for Natalie. In a shocking turn of events, Paul Hemming eventually admitted to manslaughter during his trial, recounting a heated argument that turned fatal when he threw a jade egg at Natalie's head, killing her. He then disposed of her body in an attempt to cover up his crime. Judge Richard Foster condemned Paul's actions, highlighting his controlling and violent behavior throughout their relationship. He sentenced Paul Hemming to life imprisonment for the murder of Natalie. The heartbreaking case of Natalie Hemming serves as a grim reminder of the devastating impact of domestic violence and the tragic consequences of unchecked jealousy and control. It underscores the urgent need for society to address domestic abuse and provide support to those trapped in toxic relationships. Number 6. Tia Simone Rigg. Tia Rigg, born on January 4, 1998, tragically lost her life on April 3, 2010, in Cheetham Hill, Manchester, England. The horrific events leading to her death unfolded when she was just 12 years old. Tia fell victim to unspeakable acts of torture, rape, and ultimately murder at the hands of her maternal uncle, John Maiden. John Maiden, aged 38 at the time, pleaded guilty to these abhorrent crimes. On October 4, 2010, he was sentenced to life imprisonment with a whole life order, meaning he would likely spend the remainder of his days behind bars. During sentencing, Mr. Justice Keith remarked that the severity of Maiden's actions warranted the harshest punishment: life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. The chilling details of Tia's ordeal emerged during Maiden's trial. He had lured Tia to his residence under the guise of babysitting his daughter, drugged her, and subjected her to a horrifying sequence of sexual abuse. Following this, he mercilessly stabbed and strangled her with a ligature made from a guitar string. Maiden's callousness was further revealed in his 999 emergency call, where he confessed to the murder in a disturbingly calm manner, stating that he killed Tia because he felt like it. When police arrived at the scene, they found Tia's lifeless body in a spare bedroom, a victim of unimaginable brutality. During the trial, it was revealed that Maiden had developed an obsessive interest in pedophilia, rape, and torture, as evidenced by his extensive collection of violent pornography and literature on these subjects. Despite overwhelming evidence against him, Maiden showed no remorse for his actions and refused to provide an explanation for his heinous deeds. Mr. Justice Keith emphasized the calculated and premeditated nature of Tia's murder, describing it as an exceptional case that warranted a life sentence. He condemned Maiden's actions as a realization of his twisted fantasies, resulting in unimaginable pain and suffering for Tia. Tia's tragic death left a community in shock and mourning. Her story serves as a stark reminder of the devastating consequences of unchecked violence and the importance of holding perpetrators accountable for their crimes. Number 5. Barbara Ann Barnes murder case. Barbara Ann Barnes was a 13-year-old schoolgirl from Steubenville, Ohio, who was murdered in December 1995. Despite extensive investigations, the case remains unsolved. There are suspicions and theories about the involvement of her uncle, but others believe a local perpetrator committed the crime. Journalists suggested a possible connection between Barnes's murder and the murders of other young girls in Ohio, including Tina Harmon, Krista Harrison, Deborah K. Debbie Smith, and Amy Mihaljevic. Barbara was a quiet, diligent 8th grade student at Harding Middle School. She walked to and from school daily, along with many other students, as the school was located close to her home. In 1989, her father was shot and killed, an event that profoundly affected her and reportedly altered her personality. On December 7, 1995, Barbara was last seen walking to school. when she failed to return home, a search was launched including statewide efforts. Her remains were discovered by surveyors in a riverbed on February 22, 1996. An autopsy revealed that she had been strangled and raped. Barbara's body was found near the property of her uncle, Louis Boyce, who has remained under suspicion because he reportedly did not pass a polygraph test related to her murder. Despite this, he has not been charged. A friend of Boyce defended him, asserting that it was unlikely he would harm a relative's child. This same friend was also suspected by police in connection with Barbara's father's murder years earlier. Other leads included a Florida man with a history of child abduction, who was present in Steubenville at the time of Barbara's disappearance. Some members of the police department, however, believe that a local individual may have been responsible for her murder. Journalists theorize that Barbara's murder might be linked to the murders of other young girls in Ohio, such as Tina Harmon, Krista Harrison, Deborah K. Debbie Smith, and Amy Mihaljevic. These cases share similarities in the victim profiles and nature of the crimes, suggesting a potential connection. The murder of Barbara Ann Barnes remains a tragic and unresolved case. Despite numerous theories and ongoing suspicions, no one has been charged, leaving her family and friends without closure. Number 4. Riley Fox murder case. Riley Fox was a 3-year-old girl from Wilmington, Illinois, who was tragically murdered on June 6, 2004, after her father was initially wrongfully accused and later exonerated through DNA evidence. On the night of June 6, 2004, Riley's father, Kevin Fox, picked up his children from their grandmother's house around 1 a.m. With no clean sheets available, he laid Riley on the couch and her older brother Tyler on a living room chair before going to bed around 2:33 a.m. The next morning, Tyler woke Kevin to tell him that Riley was missing. After a brief search and checking with neighbors, Kevin called the police. Later that day, Riley's body was discovered in Forsyth Woods County Forest Preserve, a public park a few miles from Wilmington. She was found face down in a creek, bound, gagged, sexually assaulted, and drowned. Kevin Fox was initially charged with Riley's murder after a coerced confession, spending 8 months in jail. He was cleared when DNA evidence showed someone else had committed the crime. Fox's attorney played a crucial role in discovering and testing this DNA evidence. The Fox family won an $8.5 million settlement in a civil rights lawsuit against the Will County Sheriff's Office. Scott Eby, whose DNA matched evidence from the crime, confessed and received a life sentence without parole. He died in prison in 2023. Number 3. Gail F. Schaller tragic case. Gail F. Schaller was a 35-year-old mother from Piscataway, NJ, who was raped and murdered after being carjacked from the Middlesex shopping mall in South Plainfield, NJ. She was one of the first carjacking victims in New Jersey. On November 3, 1992, Gail Schaller was shopping with her 3-year-old daughter, Andrea. Scott Johnson, then 23, approached Gail with a knife, forced her to drive around for 2 hours, and later dropped Andrea off at a daycare center. Andrea was found the next morning, cold and wet. 4 days later, Gail's partially nude body was discovered in a drainage ditch. She had been raped and stabbed over 40 times. The day after the abduction, Gail's minivan was found with forensic evidence linking it to Scott Johnson. A kitchen knife with Gail's blood was also found at Johnson's girlfriend's home. Johnson was identified by Andrea and a witness and was arrested on November 8, 1992. Johnson faced 13 counts related to the carjacking, rape, and murder. On February 24, 1995, he was found guilty on all counts. Though the jury could not unanimously decide on the death penalty, Johnson was sentenced to life imprisonment with a 30-year parole ineligibility, plus an additional 100-year sentence with a 50-year parole ineligibility for other crimes. His appeal was denied in 1998. In 2000, Robert Schaller, Gail's husband, filed a wrongful death suit against the mall alleging inadequate security despite previous crimes. The case was settled for $4.125 million, payable to Gail Schaller. Number 2. Amber Gail Amy Creek. Amber Gail Amy Creek was a teenage girl from Palatine, Illinois, who was tragically murdered in February 1997. Her body was discovered in Burlington, Wisconsin, shortly after she had run away from a youth shelter. Creek's identity remained unknown for a year, until James Eaton, also from Palatine, was arrested in April 2014. He later pleaded no contest to reckless homicide in 2016. Born on July 2, 1982, in Park Ridge, Illinois, Amber Creek endured sexual abuse and was subsequently placed in her father's care. She led a typical childhood until mid-1996, when at age 14 she began experiencing severe depression. This led to drug and alcohol use and frequent runaway incidents. By late 1996, Creek had become a ward of the state and fled from a juvenile residential center on January 23, 1997. Amber Creek was last seen alive in February 1997 at a hotel party in Rolling Meadows, Illinois. On February 9, 1997, hunters discovered her frozen body in Karcher Springs State Natural Area, Wisconsin. She had been suffocated with a plastic garbage bag, beaten, raped, and slashed. The word "high" was written on her palm, and a bookstore price tag was found on her arm. Creek's identity was confirmed on June 26, 1998, through DNA and dental records. Her father had alerted authorities after seeing a TV program about the case. Police invested significant time comparing evidence to other cases. Creek's personal belongings were missing, indicating the killer might have taken them as trophies. In February 2014, Creek's case was reopened. An Oklahoma crime lab matched a thumbprint on the garbage bag to James Paul Eaton. Eaton, who lived in the same town as Creek, was 19 at the time of the murder. His fingerprints were only recorded in 2000 after an unrelated arrest. Investigators collected his DNA from discarded cigarette butts, which matched the crime scene. Eaton was arrested in April 2014. Eaton initially faced charges of first-degree murder and concealing a body. He pleaded not guilty, but later pleaded no contest to a reduced charge of reckless homicide in October 2016. Eaton was sentenced to 40 years in prison, with eligibility for parole after 10 years. Number 1. Brianna Zunino Dennison. Brianna Zunino Dennison was a college student who was abducted from a friend's house in Reno, Nevada on January 20, 2008, and subsequently found raped and murdered on February 15, 2008. Brianna Dennison attended Reno High School in Nevada and was home during winter break from Santa Barbara City College, where she was studying psychology. On January 20, 2008, she was at a friend's house near the University of Nevada campus after attending a party. She was last seen alive at around 4 a.m. Dennison's friend discovered her missing at around 9 a.m. A small blood stain was found on her pillow, and she had left the house without her shoes, cell phone, or purse, wearing only sweats and a white tank top. Her body was discovered on February 15, 2008, in a field near a Reno business park, dressed only in bright, orange-colored socks. Forensic investigation at the residence found touch DNA belonging to an unidentified male on the doorknob and confirmed that the blood on the pillow was Dennison's. Investigators suspected a kidnapping scenario and began searching the University of Nevada, Reno area. DNA from the scene linked the perpetrator to 2 previous sexual assaults in the same area. James Biella, 27, was arrested on November 12, 2008, and charged with murder, first-degree kidnapping, and sexual assault after his DNA matched the DNA found at the crime scene. His girlfriend's friend had tipped off the secret witness program after finding unknown underwear in Biella's truck. On May 27, 2010, Biella was found guilty of kidnapping, sexual assault, and murder after a jury deliberation. He was sentenced to death for Dennison's murder and received 4 additional life sentences for other attacks. Biella's appeals have been unsuccessful, and his conviction was upheld by the Nevada Supreme Court on June 12, 2019. Thank you for joining us as we explored 10 of the most gripping murder cases that have deeply affected the nation. Each case, from the unsolved disappearance of Vera Page to the brutal murder of Brianna Zunino Dennison, has left an indelible mark on the nation. They remind us of the lives cut short and the enduring quest for answers and closure. As we reflect on these heart-wrenching stories, we remember the victims and their families, hoping for justice and healing. Thank you for watching this episode on Evil Criminals. Don't forget to subscribe to stay updated on this case and more. If you enjoyed our content, please leave a comment, like the video, and share it with your friends. Your support means a lot to us. Stay safe, stay informed, and we'll see you next time on Evil Criminals.